Hello there, my name is Mrs. Peters and I'm here to introduce to you a life-changing opportunity. Are you tired of searching for a job? Or you are constantly being told that you do not qualify for a particular job due to lack of skill or experience? Then worry no more.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Victor Ebim. I'm a management trainer and consultant, and I'm also on the faculty of Exford Global. Exford Global is a management consulting firm as well as an accredited training company based in Nigeria. We have 3 sessions, exciting sessions for you today. The first of which is customer care management. The second is business writing with a focus on proposal writing and business plan. And the third is a combination of preparations for interview and access to jobs. Come with us and have a good learning session. Thank you. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our session on customer care. We're going to be looking at 2 main discussions under customer care. The first is an introduction, and the second would look at the 3 fundamentals, or the fundamentals of customer care. So the first thing we're going to be looking at is who is a customer? Who is a customer? So a customer is somebody, an organization or group of people that purchase or consume another individual or another company's output. So customers are purchasers. We can look at it from that way. So customers are purchasers. And so having understood what customer is, let's look at service. Service is the ability of providing intangible value to consumers or providing tangible value in a proper way. So put together, customer service is providing value in a proper way to people who are purchasing an organization's output. Okay, so with the view of customer in mind, we move to the concept of customer service. Customer service goes beyond producing good products or quality products. Because every organization is involved in the production of goods and services. Very few, if any, organizations are totally product-oriented, and very few organizations are totally service-oriented. For example, banks provide services to us, but in the process of providing these services, there are products that are issued to us. For example, we can look at the checkbook, we can look at our ATM cards. Those are products that we use to access the bank service. So a bank is a service provision company, but it has products. We look at like a carpentry shop or a carpentry outfit that is essentially producing wardrobes and other furniture. But there is a service of delivery and or installation. So customer service is important. We look at customer service from the lens of both products and services. And so when we say what is customer service, we are talking about providing quality products and quality service. So that means customer service goes beyond just quality products. As we said earlier, in the process of delivering products that are of good standard, customer service requires being courteous in the process of that delivery. Customer service also presupposes appropriately priced products or services. Customer service also presupposes that the value customers are paying for or are receiving from a producer has to be appropriately priced. And then the next thing we are going to look at is customer service, however it is. If it does not satisfy customer needs, then it's not an effective system. Customer service is built on satisfying customer needs. And we realize that customers have emotional as well as logical needs. So a product can be of good quality, a product can be properly priced, but in the interface of sales, if somebody is not smiling or doesn't speak properly, the consumer goes away feeling somewhat unsatisfied. And that is why the Chinese will tell us, he who can't smile should not open a shop. He should probably go and work for the government or something else. So customer service requires quality products and services. It requires offering correctly priced value and also includes satisfying the customer. And as we are told, the customer is always right. Are we together? Right. So we move to the next discussion, the fundamentals of customer service. All right, so we move to our next subtopic, which is the fundamentals of customer care. And when we hear the concept of the word fundamentals, what easily comes to our mind is the foundation, the framework, or the setting of something. So we look at the fundamentals of customer care. So with the hindsight of what customer care is, essentially the fundamental of customer care is training. And training and training. Now, the essence of this is that new research findings are coming out every day about interpersonal communication skills and attributes of the customer, and as a consequence, this has to be diffused to employees, and the mechanism through which this happens is training. So through training, employees actually get a better understanding of what the customer is or who the customer is, and that enables them and puts them in a better position to provide good service. And training is a function that increases organizations and by implication employees' knowledge, skill, and attitude. So employees will become more knowledgeable with the insight of who and what a customer is. They become more skillful in interacting with customers, and they have the right attitude in the frame of disposition every time there is a customer contact. And this is very important for businesses whose operation management exposes the customer to the production process. For example, if you go to the airport to buy your ticket over the counter, part of the input the personnel requires over the counter is your name and some other details about you. And so you are experiencing the production of the service that is going to be offered to you. Just like when you get on board on the flight, you're experiencing and encountering the flight. So effective customer service sometimes becomes more important in those situations, as opposed to a manufacturing company that is producing markers. We don't experience the production process of the marker, but it's just the interface of the styling of the marker. So businesses that particularly are exposed to customer contact should pay higher premium on customer service, and that can be achieved through the mechanism of training. Next, we go forward to look at some of the key features or key characteristics of a customer. Customers are the main target of organizations. Every firm is set up essentially with the objective of providing value to the customers in the form of products or services, and in return, earning an income. So at the end of the day, it means that customers are the ultimate target of organizations. And this is very important and essential for good customer service. Another feature or characteristics of customers is that customers retain encounters. In other words, customers have long memory. Customers experience the words that are spoken to them during business and sales encounters. So it is important that customer service is given priority. Now, another feature of customers is that customers are in a position to spend an extra amount of money for the assurance of quality. For example, somebody might be disposed to buy a cold bottle of Coke slightly higher than a bottle of Coke that is not cold, depending on the circumstances, including temperature, temperament, etc. So customers can pay more for quality service. Now, we move to our next discussion, which is customer communication. Customer communication don'ts. By virtue of training, employees are now better in a position to understand the right temperament to interact with customers and to be conscious and cautious of their choice and use of words, including tone. Now, even when there's a feedback to customers that involves positive and negative information, it is always important to start with the positive. While the customer is processing it, he may not really take the negative into account. But if he gets the negative word first, there's a tendency to build a defense, and because of the difficulties of listening, he might not even get to listen to the positive feedback. So always start with positive. Where there is negative and positive feedback, always start with the positive. And then avoid the use of negative words. No, ma, we can't attend to you today is a no-no in customer service. No, sir, you can't stand on the line at this position. These are all no-nos in customer service. We always have to use the right statements to convey the proper information. And then the attitude. attitude in this case will involve things like non-verbal communication and non-verbal dispositions. Frowning is a no-no in customer service. In fact, for a discerning customer, a frown can be deciphered over the telephone. So it's important that we put up a smiling disposition, we put up the right attitude, we put up a smile, and we try to be empathetic for customers. Remember, customers pay for products and services, and so there's also that emotional service we have to provide for them in addition to quality products and services. Then time management or time wasting. We must realize that customers are also engaged with their time. And so we should provide customer service in such a way that as much as possible, customers are served with time consciousness. So if it takes 10 minutes to serve a customer, we should as much as possible serve that customer within the 10 minutes time limit. And where it becomes impossible due to technical or marketing or crowd reasons, then we have to use proper words in communicating to the customer the situation at hand. So are we together? Yes. So this takes us to the second discussion in customer service. And here we are going to be looking at the fundamentals or 3 fundamental elements of good customer service. The first is we should expand our view of who the customer is. As we said earlier, the moment an organization understands it's in existence because of its customers, then the organization is even in a better position to transcend that perception down the hierarchy of its workforce, so that at every level, employees are conscious that the customers are at the core of why an organization is in business. So as we said earlier, employees need to be brought to the fact that good customer service exceeds providing good value. That good value must be given under very cordial and amiable conditions. And then we go, the next pillar or the next fundamental, the second fundamental, is proper definition of who a customer is. Customers are people who pay for products and services. So we have a proper understanding of that. Customers are people who are willing and able to pay for products and services. Let's add that they are willing and able. Now, there are some things people are willing to buy, but they're not able. For example, many people want an aircraft, not everybody is willing. There are things people are able to buy and they're not willing. For example, most people will be able to buy a pen, but not everybody is willing to buy a pen. So a customer is somebody who has the willingness and ability to pay for products. So once we have that proper definition and understanding, it enables us to manage customers in better light. Then the third pillar or third fundamental here will be customer-friendly service techniques. Customer-friendly service techniques or methods. And it is basically based on effective communication. As easy as communication is or appears, communication is a technical field that requires attention to details. And one of the problems or issues with this is sometimes in communicating, what is spoken by one person can be misinterpreted by the hearer. And even when the person hears it properly, his ability to properly decode what was sent becomes an issue. So that presupposes that customer care requires being articulate in communication, and that can arise from training. So communication involves using the appropriate tone. Communication involves using the appropriate choice of words, of course, depending on one's vocabulary advantage. Communication also involves the right posture. So when we are speaking with people, we can use our body language to reinforce the positive communications that we are doing. And this is important because it is said that language is a conspiracy between those speaking it. So the moment we can appeal to customers' emotions and feelings by speaking properly, even in situations that we cannot resolve, that customers or the client, their firm cannot resolve immediately, as a result of that proper disposition, conflict is minimized or totally eradicated. So this is just a highlight of what customer care is. So it involves understanding who a customer is. It involves understanding what customer service really is. And the fundamentals is based on training, and then it looks at customer features. We've said customers have long memory, and when we offer good customer service to customers, what happens is that they join the marketing force through the concept of customer evangelism. So customers begin to make a referral. Just the way when we give customers bad service, they make a referral. And the customers make many, many, many more negative referrals than they do positive referrals. Right. Are we together? Any questions? Right. Thank you very much. Well, welcome to this session on proposal writing. And in proposal writing, we are going to discuss these 4 types of proposals in summary, and then we'll pick one business plan and take it home in details. So we have business plan, we have a proposal, we have grants or grant writing, and then we have research paper. What is a business plan? A business plan is a document that is written to provide a guide for the conduct of a business. A business plan is a document that is written to provide a guide for the conduct of the business. And standard practice, business plans could be written for 1 year, it could be 2-year plans, it could be 3-year plans, and 5-year plans. Technically, business plans longer than a period of 5 years would have less viability over time due to structural, economic, social, and technological changes. So it is always good we keep our business plan limit to 1 to 5 years. So that is what a business plan is. Next, we look at the objectives of a business plan. The major objective of a business plan are, 1, they serve as a document that help people access loans to start or expand their business. So loans is one of the objectives. The second objective is to get investors to come and invest into the business. So there's a difference between running your business with finance from a loan than running your business with finance from investment. So investment become shareholders and have equity in the business. And then another objective for having a business plan is to provide a general guide. Let's say a situation where somebody has the resources, all the financial resources and human resources he requires to drive the business. He also needs a business plan to provide as a documentary guide for the conduct of the business. However, there would usually be discrepancies between what actually happens and what is written in the business plan. But the business plan is always important because it provides us a proper guide. And when we finish discussing the rest, we'll take the outline of a business plan and discuss it in depth. Now, the next we're going to look at is a proposal. People usually say business proposal, but the appropriate term is business plan. So the next we're going to look at is a proposal. And what's a proposal? A proposal is a document that is written that focuses on solving a social problem. So the objective of business plan is usually to guide the conduct of a profit-seeking enterprise, but proposals focus on solving social problems, solving economic-related problems. And the target is usually not, as it were, profit on the continuum. However, the organization or individual who is writing the proposal is expected to make some earnings, and that is captured in a section of the proposal where professional fees can be earned. And then next we look at a grant. So grant writing, or a grant writing involves writing to access resources that are not going to be refunded. And the usual examples are writing for money. We could also write for technical expertise. Let's say a project needs a microbiologist with PhD qualification. And so an organization can pay the microbiologist for a period of 6 months, for instance, and send him or her to you, to your organization, to transfer the knowledge and to contribute to improvement. So that would be a grant. So the grant in that case came in human resource, technical human resource. And then there is also grants for equipment. There's also grants for equipment. We have the Bank of Industry, and the Bank of Industry's focus is to help businesses that require equipment to produce their products and render their services. So in this case, the writer of the grant gets in touch with the manufacturer of the equipment, for example, in Germany, and gets an invoice with the production specification, the cost of the product and all, and forwards it to Bank of Industry in this case, and then Bank of Industry makes a payment, and the equipment is shipped down to the owner. So grants are usually written for resources that are not going to be refunded. It includes finance, it includes equipment, and technical expertise. And then the next we'll look at is research paper. Research paper. Research papers are basically written for the purpose of knowledge production. And so this knowledge that has been produced or has been found or validated from research is now communicated through these papers and through other mechanisms and mediums like training. So we have businesses who are into also research and science-based enterprise. The products or the output of research papers become important inputs for these businesses. So having looked at what a business plan is, what a proposal is, what a grant is, or grant writing, and what a research paper is, we are now going to go into in-depth discussion of business plan writing. Financial plan. So this is an outline for a business plan. We'll discuss each of them in summary, and then before we go into details, because there are subtopics under this. So the first is executive summary. Now, even though the executive summary is positioned first, it is written last. And the logic is, how do you summarize what you haven't written? So executive summary is positioned first, but it's written last. Then you look at organization summary, now talks about a brief on the organization. Its legal status is registered with the Corporate Affairs Commission. The organization summary talks about who the shareholders are and related discussions. Then we look at product and service description. Every company, as we've established already, produces either products or services, but essentially every company produces products and service. So the product and service component of the business plan involves an elaborate description of what the business plan is about. And then with the established importance of human resource in business, in the human resource plan component of the business plan, we look at the role of human resource, how the organization is going to recruit, how it's going to promote, and related discussions. Then we look at marketing, how an organization successfully goes to the market. Then we look at the production and operations plan. This one is now the core of the value conversion process. And then we look at the strategic plan, we look at the economic plan, science, technology, and innovation. This might not apply to every business, or the science component might not apply to every business. And then we look at the financial plan. And usually the financial plan is where most investors, the part of the business plan where most investors first read before going to read the other aspects of the document. So let's bear in mind that our business plan is for the following reasons. It's for accessing a loan, it's for accessing investors, and it's to provide a guide for the business. Okay, then, tips for writing. Now let's look at organization summary. First thing we'll look at is the legal status of the company. We'll look at number of shares registered. The next we look at share distribution. The next we look at shareholders profile. Shareholders profile. Now, in discussing the organization summary, in the case of either accessing a loan from the bank or from an investor or individual, or bringing in investors, in this case, they're going to be shareholders, they'll earn a portion of the company, or in the case of you just developing a business plan that will serve as a guide. The first thing to look at is the legal status of the company. So those giving you loans and those investing would want to look at the number of shares the company is registered with. It goes without saying that a company registered with 10,000 shares should have a larger capacity than a company registered with 1,000 shares. The next we want to look at is the share distribution. If a company has 5,000 shares and there are 5 shareholders, how are the shares distributed? If 90% of the shares are distributed to one employee or to one of the shareholders and the remaining shareholders own 10%, it's a different story compared to a situation where the shares are almost evenly distributed. So if we have a situation where one person gets 90% and then 10% is to the others, now we have another situation where the largest shareholder has 30, so we have 2 scenarios here. In the first scenario, one shareholder, let's take a hypothetical case of 5 shareholders. One person owns 90% of the company, 90% shares. The other 4 earn 10%. That's situation 1. Situation 2, the largest shareholder owns 30%, and then the other shareholders own 20, 20, 15, 15. Now, if an investor or a lender looks at your company organizational structure and sees this distribution, it tells different stories. In this case, it presupposes that the business is essentially one person's business. In the second situation, it presupposes that each of the shareholders owns a larger stake in the business and by implication will have larger interests. So that tells a story and also forms part of the decision-making mechanism in addition to the remaining portions of the document. Now we want to look at shareholder profile. Now, in shareholder profile, your investors or your borrowers want to look at what is the background, the educational, the knowledge, the experience, and the contact background of each of the shareholders. Let's take a large integrated farm as an example of a business. So we have 5 shareholders. One of them has 25 years practical experience in the farm. Another has 30 years experience lecturing in crop science or agronomy or related fields. The other shareholder has 20 years banking experience. Another person has experience in marketing. And the 5th has experience in business analysis. So these 5 people coming together to own a large farm, by the time you look at their profile, it presupposes to the borrower or investor that the owners of the company all have subject matter expertise in different areas. The farm is going to need a substantial knowledge base. So the lecturer who has sufficient experience in crop science and soil science lecturing is going to provide that. And then the farmer who has decades of experience in farming is going to be in charge of supervising the production process. And then the banker, the person with banking experience, is going to provide that financial liaison service. The business developer is able to deploy the principles of business to that particular sector. So you see in this case, looking at the shareholder profile of that business, the bank or whoever is going to invest has a wider latitude, a wider perspective to take a decision to support or otherwise. So in your business plan development, under the organizational summary, the more robust the organizational summary is, the more likely the business is going to be successful and the more likely the business is in a position to collect the loan. Because the institution giving the loan wants to be sure as much as possible that you have the knowledge, the experience, and the right aptitude to the job. So that takes care of organization summary. And of course, that also includes the name of the organization and its corporate affairs registration number. In fact, even looking at the number, experienced investors can guess the age of the company. So companies that have a registration number of 6 or 7 digits are companies that were registered or set up more recently, while companies who have 2 digits or 3 digits, like a company's registration number being something like this, 250, just tells a story already that that company in Nigeria is over 20, 25 years old because of the number series is short. So older companies have smaller, shorter numbers, while newer companies have larger numbers. So just by looking at the organization summary, the investor or borrower, in this case, has a better knowledge frame to take a decision to invest or otherwise. Yes?
You said something about numbers. Numbers, what are they for? And 250 was
Yes, I'm simply referring to the registration number. Let's look for one if we can find. Okay. RC, registration number. Now, for an experienced investor, under your organization summary, as I mentioned earlier, you have to talk about the legal status of the company. So it is registered with the Corporate Affairs Commission. If it is registered, it must have a number. So the moment I see a number, or an investor sees a number that is 250, he knows that this company was registered in Nigeria before 1990. It's an old company because the first company that was registered was number 1. The second company, number 2. Although not all of them will still be in existence. So the companies that have been registered this year, even up to the year 2000, they have a 7 digits. It's in millions. It will be 1 million. I'm very sure as that today it's not up to 1,500,000. So you'll find 1,277,000. So the moment an investor sees this, they know that this company is less than 3 years old. Okay. All right, is that taken?
So does it really matter how many years the company has been in business if you want to invest in the company?
Well, I would say yes and no. A company that has a registration number of 250 is up to 30 years old. So if that company is today looking for an investment of 500,000, the story is a bit incomplete. After 30 years, the business is still in need of 500,000. So these numbers can provide that kind of information. Yes, but a company doesn't have to be. What the investors are looking out for is for the validity of the idea. And that is proven in the organization summary. Taken away from agriculture, can we have an example of another industry, another business? So we can discuss that. Let's take a training company. A training company now has people who are shareholders. One person has a PhD in a certain area. Another person has been training for 20 years, which is what he brought to be a shareholder. But the company is new. It doesn't necessarily mean that the company doesn't know what it's doing. So all the investor wants to know is, this number actually, the major objective is to prove the legal status of this company. So they can go and do their background checks. So once they go to the CAC or they go to their website and punch this number, the name of the company comes out and the person is assured that this company is a legal status. Yes, it's a legal entity, sorry. And the reason is so that the owners of the business in law are recognized distinctly from the business. That is why you can take the business to court and you've not taken the individuals to court, because they can sue and be sued because they are a legal entity. But from your business plan, let us say your RC number is this. Do we notice a difference?
Yes.
What's the difference?
BN.
BN is business name. Business name now is an individual. There is a limit to how you can prosecute in law. That is why people would prefer to do big and serious business with a legal entity. In this case, it is the individual you're taking to court. But in this case, it is the company. Although the company will be represented by, by individuals or lawyer. So people always want, once people see RC, they are more comfortable. But once they see business name, it means you're dealing with an individual. So that is why we talked about the organization summary. So it provides the total legal framework on background of the company. And like I said earlier, somebody wants to set up a company in pharmaceuticals. And none of the people on the board studied pharmacy, biochemistry, and related courses, or medicine and things like that. So if you are going to invest and you are aware, that will inform your decision. If the owners of the business don't have the subject matter expertise, does that tell well of the business? So that is the essence of organization summary. So we want to know how many shares does it have, how much does each person have, and the more equal or more even the shares are distributed, one might want to think the more even the company is owned. And the more even the company is owned, it means the more interest each of the shareholders would have. as against a case where one person has 90% and some other people have 1%. That means they have really less to gain and less to lose. And all of that can be gleaned or understood from organization summary. Right. Thank you. Any other questions, please? All right, so the next we are going to look at is product and service description. Now, this is important because sometimes somebody wants to start a business and either the institution or individual he wants to borrow money from or the investors he wants to borrow money from have not heard about that product or service before. Now, through the product and service description section of the business plan, they can now be educated and enlightened on what the product is. Let's take, for example, what is called compost. Compost is basically recycling of organic matter into fertilizers. So we use waste, kitchen waste, as they say, we use forestry waste in the form of sawdust and dry leaves, etc. So if an investor is going to invest in compost, he needs to understand basically what compost is. He needs to have a rough idea of the production process. He needs to have a rough idea of its benefits and applications. So in your product and service description, as we said earlier, every business is involved in, to some magnitude, both of them. So if your business has a stronger orientation towards products, you talk about the products. And then the service also. If it has a strong orientation towards service, you talk about service and products. Then you talk about the technical features or technical characteristics. Right. So next we move to human resource plan. Remember that our business plan is an amalgamation of plans or sub-plans. So we look at executive summary, which is position first but comes last, organization summary, product and service description, and then the next we go to human resource management plan. So in managing our human resource, we'd look at job description, we look at organization structure, we look at remuneration, we look at training, we look at succession. Now, let's start with organization structure. And let's use a scenario of a 3-year business plan. What this means is, what is the organization structure in the first year? So we have a board of directors. We have a chief executive officer. We have COO, chief operating officer. We have, at this level, we have HODs. And then we have staff. Now, this can be an organization structure for 3 years that is defined in the business plan. But in the first year, a lot of these positions might not be filled. Of course, the board of directors, which are the owners of the organization, is there. The chief executive officer is next. Sometimes, because the organization has not grown to a certain scale, in the first year, we might not have a COO. So, but in our business plan, it's good to have this structure and leave that space vacant. So that as the business grows by the second or third year, somebody is recruited and fills that position. So the initial outline of your organizational structure will have some empty spaces. So we have board of directors, chief executive officer, chief operating officer, which, as we said, in the first year, we might have an empty space. Then we have the different heads of department, head of marketing, head of production, and the rest, some of which might be also vacant. For example, in the first year, the organization might not have grown to a point where it will have a heavy need for an in-house legal department, but the legal department can come up later on. So as the years go by, we can expand. So what this means is all these positions on this level are on the same level. They are at the top or head of each of the respective departments. And then under them, you have staff. So as the business begins to grow, we now begin to populate this with more staff. So some departments might start with 1, some might start with 2 employees, some might start with 3, but by the second and third year, these all begin to expand. And sometimes we might not be able to correctly predict what the organizational structure should be, but as the years go and we now need to add new departments, we just add them and then add the employees in those departments. So, having looked at the organizational structure, the next thing we'll look at is job description. In our business plan, we have to identify the task of each position. We have to identify the task of each position. And this task will expand as the years go by and as the business expands. So even the chief executive officer, his responsibility increases over the years. It will increase in year 2, and it will be expected to be higher in year 3. Then the next, in a business plan, we look at remuneration. Please understand that a business plan is somewhat like a living document. In other words, when circumstances change, the variables change. So now we look at remuneration, that is the salary for income earners. So if we go by our 3-year design, we have year 1, year 2, year 3. Now, income is expected to increase from 2 sources. What the company pays as its total salaries in year 1 is not the same thing it's going to pay in year 2 and year 3. Between year 1 and year 3, a number of at least 2 factors lead to increase in salary. First of all, the company can have a policy of increasing salary by 5% every year. Income increases 5% every year. So employees that started off at 100,000 in year 1 would now be earning 105,000 in year 2. And then in year 3, they'll be earning something in the range of 107,000. Now, that is for one employee. Notice also that the number of employees is also going to increase. So the second source of increase in remuneration comes from having a larger workforce. So in year 1, the company started with 2 employees, or let's say 4. By year 2, the company has 8 employees. By year 3, the company has 10 employees. So as a result of these dynamics, the company's remuneration in the 3rd year will be higher.
The remuneration then is the income of the company.
The salary. Yes, that staff are earning. Remember we said the company started with 4 people in year 1, and one of them earned 100,000. And the company's salary policy is 5% increase every year. So by year 2, one of these 4 people is now that was earning 100,000 is now earning 105. So the company's expenditure on salary has increased by virtue of increase in salary and increase in number of staff. So by the 3rd year, we now have 10 employees. Of course, some of them at this 3rd year, some of them would have worked for the company for 3 years, some for 2, some would have just joined. So, but having 10 employees means the company pays more, and by this time, the company's salary will be 15% higher. 5% at the end of the 1st year, 10%, 15%. Okay, so as a result of that, the company's salary bill increases. Our next discussion under human resource plan in the business plan writing is training. Training. Let's take a mechanical engineering outfit that has recruited a mechanical engineering graduate. Now, we established the fact that training should build on existing levels of education and knowledge. So, an organization producing vehicles that recruits an engineer with a degree in mechanical engineering is going to still have to train that staff so that they're able to apply the principles of mechanical engineering to automobile production. Because the same thing would happen if that same employee was employed in a company that manufactures aircraft. So in this case, it will be training the mechanical engineer in the applications of mechanical engineering in aircraft production. And the same thing applies to generator production. So if you have mechanical engineers that are employed in a generator manufacturing company, an automobile manufacturing company, or an aircraft manufacturing company, they will undergo different training, even though their roles are similar. So with training, we fine-tune an employee's skill, knowledge and skill towards the organization's requirement. Training enables organizations to fine-tune either entry-level employees, intermediary level, or experienced level employees' skill towards the organization's objectives. And we remember that training will also come at a cost, and that cost has to have a return on investment, and that cost will later on be reflected in the financial plan. All expenditures in the business plan are reflected in the financial plan. And then finally, under the human resource plan, we look at succession plan. What this simply means is ensuring that the organization doesn't go aground because a particular employee or a particular staff or department is no longer functional. So how can organizations ensure that they are able to keep producing and providing quality products and service? One of the ways that that can be done is by recruitment. So when some employees get to the point where they are about to be retired, entry-level staff candidates are recruited from beneath the organization chain, and then that vacancy that was created, for example, for the position of a chief operating officer, can either be filled by promoting somebody, or it can be filled from within. So in having a succession plan, one thing organizations can do is to recruit. An employee is going to exit the organization in 1 month's time. You can recruit him now so that there's that transition. Another way could be through the use of technology. Organizations can use technology to replace its workforce or the functions of its workforce. For example, a training company can decide to have its trainings recorded. And once that is done, that is using technology to ensure a succession plan. So that can be used to cushion the effect of dependence on employees. So that is a high-level summary on what a human resource plan is in a business plan and how to write a human resource plan. So you look at your organization structure. If it's a 3-year plan, you look at the structure in the first year, in the second year, in the third year. And that means in the succeeding years, we expect the organization structure to both expand vertically and horizontally as new employees are taken on to meet the needs of the growing business. Then the next is we look at job description. Every position must have clearly spelled out roles and responsibilities. And then we look at remuneration and salaries. How much are these positions are going to earn? They all have to be captured in the business plan. And recall we said remuneration bill of the company will increase from at least 2 sources. 1, annual increase in salaries, and 2, from having a larger employment pool. And then the next we look at training. So with training, we are able to fine-tune and sharpen an organization's employees. And then succession plan. Succession plan is basically strategies we use to ensure that if for any reason an employee withdraws from an organization, his job function is not left hanging in the balance and leaving the organization vulnerable. Yes?
Under the Sharon plan, the organizational structure we talked about.
Yes.
You said the board of directors, CEO, COO, and others.
Yes.
Then you talked about job description. Is it like after putting your board of directors and CEOs, you still go down under your business plan to say, for CEO, this is the job description. For board of directors, this is their job description. Or it doesn't really matter. Like, do you have to state it down after you've drawn your organization
Structure. There are 2 ways. You can state it beside, once you have your structure, this will require some graphic skills. So you have your structure, You can have a call-out box here that specifies. So for each of them, you have a call-out box, but that will require the use of some graphic-related tools. In fact, this will be more pictorial, so that when somebody sees it, he can, or you could still go to another sheet, because this now is the job structure. You could now go to the next sheet, job description, and then you itemize them. But if you have graphic skills,
So
this will be more.
Points.
Just bullet points, yes. So you come to the next position, points. You come to the next one, put its points, so that it is more visible. Okay. The next in our business plan is marketing. Marketing is the life wire of business, because it's through marketing an organization is able to reach out with the message of its products and service to target customers. So the marketing plan would include, now, different businesses are marketed differently. Different businesses are marketed differently. A business that is marketing a product that is consumed by all generations, for example, let's look at noodles. A child as young as 1 year old and somebody as old as 90 years old will eat noodles. So that means the target market is very large and wide. So if you are doing your business plan, your overview and description of that market is different. But for a company that is producing blocks or molding blocks, it's not targeting everybody, even though everybody or many people live in houses. Its market description is going to be different, because its target market are organizations or individuals who are into real estate, building houses in large quantities and then renting them out. So you talk about the overview of the market for that particular type of business. And then, of course, you now have your marketing metrics. So you'll be looking at things like number of target customers per day and things like that. Then we move to sales plan. Sales plan now is the actual interface. How are your products or the products and services of a business going to be exchanged for money? Is it going to be sold over the counter, or is it going to be sold over the air, as it is with buying airtime and buying data and things like that? But for companies who are selling confectionaries and edible things, you find out that they have sales force on the street actually selling and making a physical exchange. So you talk about how sales will be done. And then you talk about advertising. You talk about advertising. Advertising is, in marketing, advertising is a mechanism or a medium that a company uses to bring the knowledge or awareness about its product to the market. So with advertising, you are communicating your products to the market. Now, once a company has started making sales, there's a transition from advertising to promotions. So when we transit from advertising to promotions, in this case, with promotions, we are trying to achieve a number of things, one of which includes accelerate the rate of repeat patronage. So a customer has bought a product before, but we want the customer to buy more. And so MTN had a promotions package that was called Bug Off, buy one, get one free. So that was not an advertisement, it was a promotion. In other words, they used that promotions to make the sales turnover to increase. And the alcoholic beverage company also used that method. When the stock of their products in inventory and storage is approaching its shelf life, they come up with promotions where people can win generators, airtime, and things like that. What are they doing? They are promoting the sale of the product. They are not advertising or introducing the product to the market. And then, as the business begins to grow, there's always a transition to customer care. Now the business is large. Now the business has a very wide customer base. The company is doing less of advertising unless it's introducing new products and services. The company has to transit to customer care. And what customer care essentially does is that it enables a company manage its customer data pool, enables a company to manage its customer base in such a way that, one, repeat patronage is higher, Two, the rate at which the organization loses customers reduces because marketing in itself and advertising is expensive. So once a company has been able to acquire a customer base, it's better to manage them than to lose them and start the cycle all over. So that's what customer care. So customer care even includes things like after-sales service, includes responding to customers' inquiries, serving customers' technical problems, etc. Note also that all of these have their associated costs. Advertising comes with a cost, promotions comes with a cost, sales comes with a cost, and all of these costs have to be highlighted in the financial plan. Right. Is that taken?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
This promotion, sales plan, advertising, do we need to indicate it on the business plan for the investor or
Yes.
beforehand?
Yes. They have to be all articulated. So that's the number 4 point. So that's why we have them in bullet points. Because he needs to understand how the information about the business is going to be conveyed to the market. So that is why we talk about how sales is going to take place. So if a person has his prejudice for one-to-one sales, that is good enough information for him to take a decision. If the person has a preference for selling over the air, as they say, it's from there he can take that decision. I'm comfortable with this business, but I don't think making sales in person would be a good idea. And he can give you justified reasons. Because the employees are now handling the company's cash. But if sales is going to be done over the air, it restricts the business from being defrauded by its employees. So all of this must be stated. That's why we say a business plan is a living document with different components interacting with each other. All right, so any other? Next, we look at production and operations plan. Production and operations. Now, the next major component of a business plan is production and operations. And the production and operations is actually the core of every business. If we go to a restaurant, the production and operation is the actual value conversion of foodstuff and ingredients into something that can be consumed. If you go to a furniture outfit, the production and operations plan includes the actual conversion of wood, the treatment of wood, pre-production and all of that, and processing into a finished product. If you go to a bank, the production and operations plan is the transaction, the exchange we have with a bank. So you go to your ATM, slot in the card, and you pull out cash. That process for the bank is its operations plan. Because recall that production focuses on creation of tangible output, while the operations component focuses on the provision of a service. Now, in production and operations plan, we want to know what are the objectives. So you have to highlight the objectives, depending on the particular circumstances of a business. I've given us a few examples. Then, the second point is the transformation process. Transformation process. There is no business that produces all the inputs that it uses. So some of them are purchased, and they come in the form of inputs and raw materials. Now, this is where the production and operations, this is the core. That transformation process that leads to output. So you need to define and describe that transformation process. Remember the 3 uses of business plans: for a loan, for investor, and to serve as a guide. Investors want to see the transformation process, what input you are going to use, and what output it is that you are going to get. So you talk about the objectives, then you talk about the transformation process. Then, importantly, you look at the production classification. And there are 4 production classifications. One is continuous. I'll draw a small graph to describe this in details. We have the continuous, we have the mass, we have the batch, and job shop. Next discussion is, or the next subtopic is production and operations plan. And the first objective is to determine, the first point is to determine what the objectives are. And these objectives include provision of value, production of cost products at the lowest possible cost, etc. Then the next we will look at is the classification. The classification of production. Now, some businesses are into continuous production, like businesses involved in the production of textiles or fabrics. You just find out that their machines are just rolling. The machines are just rolling. So now in the production classification, there are two things we are looking at: the volume of output and the level of variability. So you see that for continuous, their level of output is very high, but the variability is very low because they are producing the same type of product. A classical example here would be the crowns that are used to cover drinks. If you look at those crowns, they have 21 rings, all of them, regardless of whether they are soft drinks or hard drinks. So the companies that produce them are in continuous. The variability is, the product is the same, it's not variable, but the output is large. So their machines are just producing every day, producing every day. So if a business is in that space, the production and operations implications are different. First and foremost, because of the large volume, they are in a better position to make more profit if they can minimize cost by even 5%. So the 5% reduction in the cost of 1 crown would aggregate into a very large percent when they produce 20 million crowns over a period of 1 month. So we have some businesses that are into continuous production. Then we have another group of businesses. Their output is large, although it's less than continuous, and their variability is a little more. But in this case, it's called mass production. So they produce a large number of products, but the products is less than continuous. Continuous presupposes that the machine runs constantly. And so it is in business like this that you'll find the need for shift. People come to work 7 a.m. in the morning, they close by 3 because it's a continuous system. Now, that business also is in a position to employ a larger workforce and may also have the advantage of negotiating lower wages, or a disadvantage if the industry has trade unions. So because of the trade unions, the employees are coming together as a force, not as an individual asking for higher wages. So that is why it is good to have these distinctions. And then after that, we talk about mass. So mass involves large production, but lower variability. Then the next one is batch. We can see we are descending on one variable and increasing on another. The next one is batch. And as the name implies, batch production involves producing of products in batches. So in this case, the factory doesn't run 24 hours. The factory only runs when there is a need to produce. So the company produces in batch. A batch can be 100,000 products and they stop. A batch can be 50,000 products and they stop. And the next one comes to job shop. Look at the volume of output is very low, but the variability is very large or high. This involves customized products. Like an earlier example, we talked about cars like Lamborghini and Rolls-Royce. These ones are job shop. The number of products are fewer, and the variability between products is very large. And this also presupposes that the production cost for businesses in this space is high because their products are customized. And because their production cost is high, generally, the price that they can sell also is higher. So operations management enables us to situate a business between any of these continuums because each of them have their implications. They also have implications for the kind of machines that can be used. This one requires more customized machines. This one requires harmonious machines. So that means the expenditure on equipment here is going to be less. Expenditure on equipment here is going to be more. And these are in between. So these are very important decisions. And that's why they are included in the business plan. So that the investor or the person, a company or individual giving the grants can have a wider and deeper picture as to what type of business they are going into. And the essence is for them to take a plan or a decision to invest or a decision not to invest.
Okay. So after what's the production
An operations plan.
and operations plan, it is a graph.
Yes.
You stated production and operation plan. Let's say you're taking the batch operation and
Okay, with the graph now, the next point now is to identify where, yes, which of these categories your business falls into. So once you identify what category your business falls into, we now know that that business is going to involve more machines or less machines. That means it's more machine dependent. Or that business is going to involve more humans or less humans. That means it's more or less dependent on humans and the necessary implications of that. Remember, this document is, except it is where you're trying to provide a guide, where you have the resources, this document is actually like a marketing tool for accessing finance to expand.
it's very important for us to state the kind of
Yes, yes, your value conversion process is important to situate it. Okay. Then I'm sure we'll have to repeat some things on strategy. So on that strategy, we'll have 5 discussions. The first one is a strategy cycle, and the second is strategy hierarchy, and the next is broad views to strategy. And then we look at generic strategies and SWOT. Right, so with our strategy cycle, we are looking at a simple process of formulation, implementation, evaluation, and then we make adjustments. So all strategies begin with formulation. Formulation is basically the devices, the conceptions of what is going to make the organization distinctive. Then, after devising it, we'll go to the field, we implement it. In the process of implementing, it's important that we have reviews, periodic reviews, which could be biannually, annually, depending on circumstances. Then, from the variations we've observed, we now make the necessary changes and the necessary adjustments. Now, this is important because strategy is actually a tool that can help an organization remain competitive. Strategy is actually a tool that can help organizations become competitive. So this will be 9, this will be 10. Competitive. So as an organization has devised and is implementing strategy, its competitors are also implementing strategies. So the importance of this is so that you can keep going back to make readjustments, so that you keep aligning to get a strategy position that is profitable. Then we look at hierarchy, strategy hierarchy, and in the hierarchy we will have said earlier, we'll have the corporate level, we'll have business level, we have functional level, and then we have operational. So as we said earlier, corporate level refers to the highest decision making in an organization, usually a diversified organization or an organization that has overseas branches. Then the next is the business level. Business level is either the product or at the country level. And the business level strategy always feeds from the corporate level. So we have something like this. We have corporate, business, functional, operational. And you can see it expands as it descends or contracts as it ascends. Then regardless of if an organization is diversified or very large and operating in different locations, there are things that will be done at different departmental levels. So you look at those things. So some things that are important to legal might not apply to marketing. Some things that apply to operations might not apply to finance and accounts. Then we look at broad views. And our broad views are basically our perspective or inclination to the business. Remember, we are talking about a business plan here. So we're looking at the perspectives of a business, a strategy perspective. And there are four views. We look at the classical. Classical looks at long-term detailed plan. We look at the evolutionary. It tries to make adjustments and adaptation as organizations' circumstances in the external environment change. It also looks at processual. Then we look at our generic strategies.